everybody. Happy New Year's Eve. I was going to want to echo what John said. Thanks for coming out tonight and welcome to Grace Church. I am Josiah, as he said, the student ministries intern here. And I'm usually over in that other building over there with all our kids. So this is new for me to be up here, but I'm excited and looking forward to share what God has to say for you guys today. I've been an intern here for a couple of months now, and some of you guys know who I am. Some of you guys know a little bit more than others. But I want to share a little bit more about myself and my family, and just a little bit more so you guys can know me a little bit better before hopping into the message today. But I actually have a wonderful family, but we all went to CBCA, and that's where I graduated from high school in 2014. In this spring, I'm going to graduate from Moody Bible Institute. I'm actually taking classes at Grace Church, the Bath campus, so I'm still here, yes. Moody is down in Chicago, so that's why I'm able to still be here and take classes from Moody. I'm going to that extension to take classes, and I'll graduate here in the spring, as I said, and then in the summer, I'm going to marry the love of my life on July 1st. So super excited. There's a picture of us. Yeah, that's going to happen, so pretty exciting. Her name is Grace, which gets confused with lots of things. People ask me all the time, oh, how's Grace? And it's like, that could mean like 4 different things, and they've all meant 4 different things. It's like, well, one, how's Grace? How's your fiance, right? It's like, how's your relationship? Stuff like that. How's that going? It's like, okay, yeah, all right. So, or they could mean, hey, how's Grace? How's your internship at Grace Church, right? So it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it could mean that too. Or, hey, how's school going at Grace Church in Bath, taking classes? And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that too. And then, oh, they could mean God's grace in general too, right? So it could mean 1 of 4 things. So if you ask me, how's Grace? Expect to get a nice summary of all 4. So, but she's been a wonderful source of encouragement and just support for me. And no matter what I've done the past 3 years that we've known each other very dearly. But another source of encouragement for me is my family. We're very close, and there's a great looking picture of all of us up there. On the top left is Elijah, bottom left is Noah, that's Isaiah, and then Micaiah is my sister. And then 2 wonderful godly parents, Jim and Heather, and then 2 great grandparents as well, Linda and David Bailey. They're just such a great source of encouragement for me and support no matter what I decide to do. Like get up on stage and preach or something. They're always there to support me, no matter how stupid I am or bad decisions that I make. We, especially this group, we like to hang out a lot and do things on the holidays and do things together. One of those things is on New Year's Eve, we like to go to a family friend's house. We usually go eat food, play games, hang out, and whatnot. We've been going there for as long as I can remember. And I don't know when these games just turned into tournaments, but they're kind of a big deal now. We have ping pong tournaments, outdoor field goal kicking tournaments, we have indoor putt-putt tournaments. We're kind of a big deal. So the thing about our family is we're very competitive, and we love to game and to just have fun and hang out together. So transition, right? Look at this cool transition. So other New Year's Eve things that people like to do, or New Year's things, is, as John said, New Year's resolutions. So as we all kind of sometimes make resolutions for this. Has anyone actually been able to keep a New Year's resolution longer than like a month? There we go. That's a couple of us. Good stuff. There we go. So at a time of year, it makes sense. The year's ending, as he said, and we kind of look back at certain things that we would probably want to stop doing, certain habits or attitudes. And then we're looking into the new year with certain things we might want to start doing instead. So tonight we are starting this new series, I Quit, 4 attitudes we're so done with. We just finished our Christmas series where we looked at Isaiah 9, 6 through 7, where we took this crazy time of year to slow down, take a step back, and look at the 4 names of Christ in that passage. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. So we're coming off of that series into our new series today called I Quit. Today, I'm going to start us off by talking about judging. So I quit judging. What do you think when I say judge everything? Other than the fact that it goes against what I just said, I quit judging. How would you feel if I said, I actually really believe that we should judge everything? Feel anything in your heart tugging a little bit? Sound right? I strongly believe that we should judge everything and everyone. So then what's the point of tonight? I quit judging? Okay, well, let me explain. So we actually make judgments and we judge things every day, right? You wake up to get breakfast. Oh, what do I want to have for breakfast? What am I going to eat? Should I have another cup of coffee after I already had a whole pot? So you make decisions like that, or bigger, more important decisions, such as taking a job offer or making a big purchase, hiring an employee, which college you want to attend, right? Which school to send your kids to. So you have all these judgments you need to make. We're even called to judge one another, right? Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, where he talks about expelling a moral brother. We're supposed to judge each other and look at our behavior, right? To keep each other accountable. But where's the whole I quit judging part? Great question. There is a line when our judgment decisions, our wise, discerning evaluations turn into negative judgments. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Our judgment becomes sinful when we judge to condemn others. How does that feel?
Better.
Yeah. Let that sink in a little bit. Think of times that you've done that yourself. We don't tend to really mean to do this. It's just kind of one of those natural sinful things we tend to do, right? We start seeing certain outward signs on people and start to assume and condemn their inward feelings or thoughts that we put together ourselves. We assume and then we condemn. So to clarify the difference between the good and bad judgment, if you will, that we just talked about, we'll call our everyday decisions judging, and then bad judging, if you will, being judgmental. So when we condemn others, we're being judgmental. I used to work at a laundromat here in Barberton, actually. My brothers are laughing because they still work there. If anyone has ever been to a laundromat, you can probably attest to the fact that you get some really interesting people in there, right? So as the laundromat attendant, I see all those people. So I'm cleaning, normal day, cleaning a washing machine, whatever, wiping it off the outside on the inside, and the wave of terrible smell hits me. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, did I miss a spot? What's going on? And as I'm bringing my head back out of the machine, I notice a guy loading his clothes in the machine down a few. That smell, of course, was coming from him, and he's, disheveled look and whatnot. He's far off look in his face, too. You could tell he wasn't fully there. He definitely didn't smell like he came from a perfume shop, and the shop he came from probably sold more than just Marlboros, if you know what I mean. So immediately I felt, and I saw myself starting to judge and condemn this man of what I thought was a life of bad behavior and bad decisions. But I had to stop and think, well, who am I to judge that man just on what he looks and then condemn him based upon that? How am I to say that I am better off? Our judgments become sinful when we judge to condemn one another. The passage we're going to dig in today is John 8, 1 through 11. So again, start turning there if you have your Bible. If you don't, go ahead and raise your hand. We have some people that can grab you guys a Bible. And if you actually don't own one, feel free to hold on to that, write your name in it, and take that home. So as you turn there, I'm going to give you guys some background on the passage because we're kind of jumping in the middle of nowhere. So in this passage, Jesus is doing his normal thing, right? He's teaching in the temple courts, and of course, he runs into the Pharisees. So these guys, not a new thing, they run into Jesus all the time. And these guys were a sect of Jews that strictly held to the Mosaic law. The term Pharisee meant separate, so they saw themselves as separate ones or set apart people that were a little more holy, a little prideful, and keeping the law a little more strictly than everybody else was. They were so focused in keeping their own laws and whatnot, and the law of Moses, that they put their own hedges around it, right? You've probably heard of this before. So the law would say, for example, do not work on the Sabbath, right? Keep it holy. And they would add their own laws of, hey, let's limit our amount of steps so we don't walk too far and end up working too much. So they would put these hedges around and end up focusing on those and missing what the law said in general. So these guys, super focused on the Mosaic law. These are who run into Christ in this passage, right? So as with most interactions that he has with the Pharisees, they set up a trap for him, right? It's not usually, hey, what do you know about this? We're really curious. It's usually like, hey guys, I got this one. This one's going to trap him, right? That's usually what they're doing, and this is what they're doing here as well. Let's look at it. John 8, 1 through 11. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. What do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left. With the woman still standing there, Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Adultery, or wife stealing as it was considered, was shameful and punishable by banishment just in the Roman law, right? They were actually, the husband was required to divorce her if he ended up catching her. And if, in some cases, if both were found, they would be killed on spot. But that was usually kind of rare, and it didn't happen all the time, so it usually went unpunished. But that was the Roman culture. For the Old Testament law, it had a lot heavier weight behind it. Actually, in Leviticus 20:10, it actually commands that they be put to death. So it's not only going against a command, hey, don't commit adultery, but it's also a command that they'll be put to death if they do commit it. Seems a little bit harsh, but this is what the woman is facing when she knows she did wrong. She knows she's going to get stoned, which is kind of an interesting, hard way to die. I don't know if you guys have looked at some of this before, but it's where people kind of get around the accused, take these stones, and throw it at the person until they're dead. These aren't like skipping rocks or like little pebbles you're like throwing at the person. These are like boulders that they're picking up and heaving at these people until their brains are bashed out. So, pretty rough deal. So just imagine, put yourself in her shoes for a second on how she must feel when she's getting dragged around by these holy law keepers, about to face this terrible way to die. It's kind of like I guess it would be like a firing squad today, but a little bit slower, right? So imagine what she must feel. And then imagine how she must feel when Christ saves her from this. Have you ever been in a spot like that? Where you are in the front of something that you deserve to have, this pain that is going to happen to you because you deserve it, and Christ snatches you out of there. So back to our paradox. So in this trap, if he condemns her, they would accuse him of a few things. First, they kind of play on his Messiah role that he's kind of had, and the sinners he's befriended in the past. They're like, well, you go against what you've done before, and if you're the Messiah, you're supposed to forgive and love people, so if you condemn her, you're not going to be that. So they're playing on that a little bit. Also, Rome had just taken away the capital jurisdiction for the Jewish courts, so unless it had to do with their temple violations, all that means is that they couldn't make the decision to kill her. They had to send her to the Roman courts to make that decision. So if Jesus says, yes, condemn her, they're going to run all the way over to Rome and be like, he's breaking your law, you should arrest him. So if he says that, then he's in trouble there. If he does not condemn her, of course, they're going to be like, it goes against Moses' law. He says we're supposed to kill these people, so you're no friend of Jews. Well, who are you throwing out scripture? So he's stuck in either of these ways. But as we saw, and as with every interaction with the Pharisees, he kind of sees right through their intentions, and he responds in a way that baffles them all. We've looked at that before with the imperial tax, when they come asking, hey, should we pay taxes, right? And then if he says yes, then they go to the Jews and they're like, he wants us to pay for our oppression, because that's what the imperial tax was paying for. But if he said, no, don't pay taxes, they would go to Rome and be like, see, you should arrest him again, because he's saying it again. So, similar thing where he's stuck between these two answers. With the tax question, he says an answer that baffles them all. But here, he doesn't necessarily say anything right away. But his entire response speaks volumes. So I want to take some time to look at the two different responses that we see to this woman. First, of course, we see the Pharisees. The Pharisees' response was right, in a sense. The law actually demanded that she die, so they're correct in their evaluation of what the woman did in conjunction with the law. Leviticus 20:10, like I said, says, if a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death. So although they're correct in what the law says, they're focusing on condemning the woman. They're being judgmental, right? They kept each part of the law in so much detail that they added their own laws, right? And they were focusing on their own laws more than the heart of the law. They missed the heart when they added their own hedges. And they were no better than she was the problem. Our judgment and theirs becomes sinful when we judge to condemn others. So their response was a response of being judgmental. But it also was an approach of truth, which the strict truth can be quite harsh. They were pretty big on it, though, too, right? They had the law, they had what was true, but they were missing a huge part of the equation. And we'll see what that is in Jesus' response. So that was the Pharisees' response. So Jesus' response is something quite different. First, he's the only one that can hold to his statement. Look back at it, he says, anyone who is without sin, be the first to throw a stone. Clearly they're all sitting there like, oh wait, this guy's sneaky. He's the only one that is capable of judging others because he's the only one without sin. He had the right to stone her right there, but he doesn't. And that's not what he came to do, right? We looked at this last week when Jeff looked at how Christ is the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Shalom. The Prince of Peace who is good, holy, perfect, doesn't come to condemn us, but to save us, right? He came to bring us shalom, to bring us that peace. And we looked at John 3:16, probably the most popular verse that we know. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. But it's the verse after that we looked at a little bit more and saw how oftenly that's the most forgotten or neglected verse because it's right after the most popular one. But this next part is what we talked about. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned. So Christ did not come to condemn, but to save. So although he's the only one that could, he does not. And that's not what he came to. So that's what we've established. But he doesn't ignore the fact that she sinned. So he didn't come to condemn it, but he didn't ignore the fact that she sinned either, right? Verse 11 says, go now and leave your life of sin. So he condemned the life of sin, but not the sinner. It's more than just even saying that. He called her to a new life. He came with the truth, like the Pharisees did, but he also came with grace. That was Christ's response. And that's the gospel, right? The truth, we are sinful and condemned to die, but we also have the grace of God. God gave us Christ to pay for our sins, something that we don't deserve. Christ's response was this grace and truth. I want to dig into this a little bit more. Grace and truth. Grace. No, not my fiance or Grace Church, my internship, or where I go to school. God's grace. Strictly defined, to make it simple, God's unmerited favor. God chose to love us. Jesus chose to love us because he chose to love us. We didn't earn it. We don't deserve it. He freely loves, forgives, is patient with us, and restrains judgment freely. When I was in high school at CBCA, I was involved in theater, but I kind of stayed to the tech and set crews. So I was on the lights and sound board and all that fun jazz, and then the set crew was the people that built the sets and whatnot. But I never auditioned. I was too scared to be on stage and in front of people. But God had other plans. So when all that's happened, it gets to my senior year, I had never auditioned, and I felt encouraged by my family and friends, as well as led to just just give it a try. It was Tarzan, the musical, and I was like, you know what? I'll be an ape in the background. I'll have a mask on. They won't know who I am. If I mess up, they won't know, right? So I thought it was a good opportunity. Sure enough, I gave it a try. Truth was, I had no experience. I didn't try a whole lot. I might have tried like an hour to work on the song and just got more frustrated with it when I was trying to figure it out. So I had no experience, no idea what I was doing, not a whole lot of training. I didn't deserve any significant role. But God's grace was demonstrated to me when he granted me not only a role in the musical, but the lead role as Tarzan. He showed his unmerited favor and undeserved kindness to me. And that's when I grasped it the most. That's grace. Truth defined as fact or reality, right? That's what we can hold on to, what we have in the Bible as right, and what we want to follow. Not too hard of a concept to grasp. We have the truth of we're wicked, broken, sinners, far from God, but we also have the truth that we can be saved too. It can be harsh, but the Pharisees did do a good job of at least having the truth and knowing it pretty well. The problem is when we lean one way or the other towards truth or towards grace, we end up forgetting the other one. I want to take some time to look into both the extreme of grace and the extreme of truth. The extreme of grace is the whole, God loves everyone, let's coexist, right? It doesn't matter what you do, you're a good person, God will forgive you, right? He's full of grace. That's not right. An extreme of grace dulls the standard of righteousness that God calls us to in Jesus Christ. I was talking with a high school friend this past week, and we were talking how the church is surprised when they see someone living a life of righteousness. It's like, wow, that guy is so godly. Man, I wish I could pray like him. And man, he's so committed. Wow. And then when we see someone, a Christian, a Christ follower, who's committed their lives to Christ, living in sin and continuing in the ways that they've moved on from, but keep going back to, and we see that, and we're like, that's okay. God will forgive them, and it'll be fine. And it's grace, whatever. I'm not saying you can't and doesn't forgive you. I'm just saying we downplay righteousness and the call of the standard we are to. That's just a misunderstanding of grace. A life of righteousness has become a rarity in the church, where a life of sin is more prevalent and more accepted. Focusing on grace all the time, devoid of truth, is a lie. That's the extreme of grace. The extreme of truth looks like what the Pharisees did. We become judgmental and condemn those around us because we think our truth is right. We make our own hedges and distort what real truth is because we think we have it and are right and can own it. We think it's our truth. We create this us against them mentality when we think this way. Out of context and out of relationship, truth is also not true. It becomes a lie as well. This happens all the time in the church too. It's not that I always hate on the church, but there's times, why do you think we're labeled as haters, right? We go around and the homosexuals, abortion clinics, and other things that are condemned by the church, our extreme focus on the truth that is devoid of any kind of grace turns into hate. We start hating instead of loving first. That's an extreme. That's the extreme of truth. What extreme do you tend to land on? What does it look like in your life? Our judgment becomes sinful when we judge to condemn one another. When we bring both grace and truth together, we turn from thinking us against them to us for them. Putting both grace and truth together is called love. Jesus loves us, and when we love others, we extend grace or truth when it's needed. The reality is life isn't a set of rules, right? Right or wrong. There's no just both things. It's not devoid of all that. But it's also not devoid of consequences either. We're living life with whatever you want to do, and then grace will come and just fix everything. It takes a combination of both. And it's not our role to condemn either. That's God's role. Our role is to hold on to truth and extend grace to others. Finding this balance is definitely a challenge and something that is always hard to do, especially when you're trying to avoid the extremes. But one of the ways that I saw was a beneficial way to do this is God works in cool ways in our own lives. So by looking at our own experiences and where God has extended grace and truth to us, we can then look at how we can extend grace and truth to others. So if someone's struggling with an addiction or a sin that you've also struggled with, you can share the grace of God that He shared with you when you've experienced those same things. Or someone's struggling, just being lost and scared, you can share the truth with them that God has shared with you when you struggled with those same things. So as we see from this passage in John, we can respond in two ways. We can respond as the Pharisees did, or as Christ did. The problem with the Pharisees' response, being judgmental, so many things, but mainly a couple things I want to share. First, we've all sinned and broken the law. Sin is defined as missing the mark. And Jeff used an awesome imagery back on the elementary school and before we were in this building, where he had a Nerf gun and he had someone hold up their hand and he shot their hand several times. He's a bad shot, so he missed every time, but the point is still there that he missed the mark each time. Sometimes he missed way over here, sometimes a little bit closer, but he still missed the mark. It's the same thing with our sin. No matter how bad we've sinned or how much we've sinned, we still all miss the mark of perfection. And since we've all missed, we all deserve to die. So when we look down on each other as sinful, we are as sinful as they are. So we have no right to condemn them because we're on the same page. We become the hypocrites that Christ calls the Pharisees on many occasions. So that's one reason why it's so wrong. But also, it's not our role, being judgmental and condemning others. God is the ultimate judge. James 4:11-12 says, "Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor?" So those are the two responses, and that's why being judgmental is definitely not the way to go. But I want to end our time with a few practical ways that loving others looks like rather than being judgmental towards them. We've talked a little bit about this in the past, but it's kind of cool to see the comparison of how contrasting loving and being judgmental towards each other is. First off, we can accept them. When we are judgmental towards others, we put them in their own category, we stay away from them, and we want to just avoid the others at all costs. But when we accept them, we're loving them. That doesn't mean you agree with what they believe or what they say or how they live. It just means you value them. Don't be repulsed by their life or their messes. We have them too. And that's what God does to us. He moves towards our mess. So let's move towards theirs. Secondly, we can take an interest in them. When we're judgmental, we get so self-centered and just kind of look at ourselves as like the best thing on earth and get so prideful. But we're each created in God's image and have our own unique talents and gifts that God has given us. It makes us fascinating. So take an interest in one another to love them. This is kind of hard for me because I'm an introvert, so meeting new people and kind of getting to know them is a little bit draining just because I find more energy by just being by myself. But it's still fascinating to see how Christ and how God has wired us each differently. So accept them. What was the other one? Take an interest in them. Finally, we can serve them. And this can be done in so many different ways. God makes these opportunities available to us. We just have to choose to do them. The cool thing about serving is when we serve someone, we are pushing them up, putting them above us and supporting them. When we're being judgmental, we're pushing them down and trying to push ourselves up. So it's quite an opposite, contrasting attitude to have. Obviously, there's so many different ways to physically serve someone, whether that's shovel, rake leaves, open a door, whatever it is, you name it. But God's gifted us with plenty of talents and gifts that we can also use to serve others. I want to invite the band to come up, and as they do, there might be some wrestling and whatnot, but I want to close with a few things here before we're done. But I quit being judgmental and commit to loving others. Can we make that our New Year's resolution this year? Instead of seeing people as their sin, see them as people. See them as Christ sees them. Discern what's good and pure, but extend grace. Care less about what their life looks like. Care more about making Jesus make sense. Let's not pick up the stone. Let's pick up the person. If you're a visitor today, maybe that's how you've seen the church. Maybe that's how you've interacted with those that are Christians. They've told you, hey, be better, act holy, work on stuff, try harder. Maybe that's how you measure yourself up and just figured, I can't make it, so why try? I'm not saying there aren't standards in the Bible. The focus is that Christ wants to know you and have a relationship with you. He doesn't say, fix it, then come get to know me. It's, get to know me. I'll fix it. He does the change in our life, not us. We can't try harder to do anything. Let's come to him, and he'll change us to who he wants us to be. If you've never had the opportunity to have this relationship with Christ, it's the greatest thing that can happen. And I want to invite you and challenge you to make that choice today. If you're visiting and have never had this opportunity, we're here to make Jesus make sense. Myself, anyone with a lanyard on, or you could just stop anyone and ask them to help Jesus make more sense to you. So I want to challenge you with that today. Let's pray.